Welcome. Fantastic. So we're excited. First of all, thank you to everyone that was here yesterday for all the day one sessions. Incredible speakers, incredible engagement from you all in the chat, and just people listening and watching. Thank you for the feedback that you've sent us so far. We really appreciate it. I've already made some changes to make things better for today and for the next times. So a couple of things I want to say thank you to is Defense Unicorns, just call them out as the putters together of this beautiful event. Also our partners with Catalyst Campus and the Linux Foundation. Those three companies and partners really put this all together and made this a working thing. So thank you to everyone there. Couple ways of how the sessions are going to flow. If you are new for today and weren't here yesterday, is we have a session that starts on the hour, every hour up until 2 p.m. this afternoon, 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Any of the times that you see in the sessions or that I share, anyone shares, are going to be Mountain Standard Time. So just do the conversion wherever you are. Or ask in the chat and we can convert it for you. I can't, I don't have a math brain, but I can Google it real fast. So we'll have the speakers will have a chance to talk. They're going to do some Q&A, so you all have a chance to ask questions and really grill them. This is for you, so we want to make sure you're getting out of it what you want. And we've got the interaction in the lobby, so you can go into the lobby, and that's how you got to this session right now. Go find people, interact with people. Some people told me that it wasn't working, others told me it was working, so let me know if you can interact. You can bookmark sections, you can download the presentations, which I know, Douglas, they're getting uploaded right now. But every session, all from yesterday and today, has a downloadable presentation in there already for you to have. And then the videos from yesterday are also in the sessions in the lobby, and they're also on a YouTube link, a link that Rob put up a little bit higher, and then we'll keep sharing out. And we sent out via email this morning too. A couple things, what I call the operating agreement is all-in commitment. We have all these speakers, ourselves, the whole team, putting everything we can for you all. All we ask is you throw it back to us. Ask questions, let us know what is working, what's not working. We just want to make this a great event for you. Welcome everyone that's joining in the chat. Another thing on the operating agreement is no judgment. Everyone's here to learn. Everyone has a question for a reason. There's no right or wrong questions. It's just all here to learn. So please be kind to everyone in the chat. Just help each other learn from this great event and from each other, and we can all grow together. Time boxes, we are gonna have kind of tight time boxes and kind of how things work. Well, not tight, but I'm gonna try to keep us on time so that we can respect your time, give you breaks when you need it or when they're available, and also respect the speaker's time too. Ask all the questions that you can. We want all the questions. We got a lot of people that are experts in these topics that are also in the chat, and the speakers are watching the chat too, both from this session and other sessions. So make sure you're asking all the questions. Gerald's throwing down the link. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but really jump in, connect with people, private chat someone that you see. If you know someone, if you want to meet someone, send them a little chat, say, hey, how's it going? I'm so-and-so from here. We want you to connect and grow. That's what this whole event's all about. I'm going to share my screen real fast and just share a couple things. One is give you a chance to take a screenshot of the agenda or a photo of the agenda for today if you'd like to. Let me see if I can get this going. Here we go. Whoops. You can see my whole screen, so you're welcome. All right, so here you can see the agenda for today. Today we're going to kick us off with user experience and engagement. Then we're going to what is Big Bang. We're going to go into supply chain security after that. Agile contracting, which is going to be awesome. Service mesh and Istio. I had to learn how to say that a few times. And then we're going to end the day with the artificial intelligence and machine learning. And then right at 3, we'll have a couple words from Rob and others. It's just the gratitude for everybody joining today. So yeah, that's kind of the agenda for today. Feel free, I'll leave that for a second. Take a screenshot of that, take a picture of that. This slide's also available in the welcome intro section for yesterday's session, day 1, and we'll make sure we put it right here for this morning session. It's also available online, but here, take a screenshot if you want. This is kind of what we're running through today. And these are the times are in Mountain Standard Time. So please do that conversion wherever you are in the world, because we got people all over the world joining us, which is freaking awesome. So one other thing I want to talk about is tomorrow. Day 3, Industry Day, is in what is called Gather Town, the metaverse. Virtual Industry Day. It is this little, I tried showing a live demo, but anyone that does live demos, my screen wouldn't refresh. So this is what Gather looks like right here. You have a little character, you can walk around, interact. You can see on this screenshot, Lindy and Michaela were in there. You can interact with anyone that you want to that's in the space. We've got booths set up for all the speakers and the companies that the speakers represent from yesterday and today. They've all got a virtual booth. You can go in and talk to them. They want to share anything, all the great things that they're doing. So that's a great place to do it. Also, all the attendees, you can all join. People that couldn't get in because we sold out of Zoom tickets, they can join tomorrow too. Come join us in the Virtual Industry Day. Yep, I got the go ahead. Our speakers are going to jump in right now. So come join us, the Virtual Industry Day. It's going to be awesome. We're kicking it off with a waffle party, virtual waffle party, of course. But bring your best waffle. I'll give away some swag to anybody that shows up with the best waffles on camera or something. I'm down for that. So yeah, super excited for tomorrow's Industry Day. It's going to be great opportunity for you to engage, interact. Let us know if you have problems getting in. There are some Easter eggs. There's swag hidden around as you explore Industry Day tomorrow. And so there's some great opportunities to get some Doug shirts. And there is one hoodie somewhere hidden in Industry Day that you can go and find. And there's some mugs and other fun stuff. So our speakers are joining the stage. Super excited. We got Mike Snyder coming from, looks like Iceland, and also an awesome hoodie. So it's hard to tell. How's it going, Mike?
It's good. It's good, Matt. How are you?
I'm freaking awesome, man. I'm pumped to be here. Super excited to have you here. Welcome, Patrick. How are you?
Doing well, Matt. Good to see you again.
Hey, you as well. Yeah, welcome. And Aniza's in the house. Welcome, Aniza.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you all here. We've already got some requests yesterday about people excited for this session, people this morning excited for this session. So just a few things for you all. As you know, as the team behind stage has been rocking it, getting you ready, people will be asking questions. You guys will give your presentation. You can either answer the questions live or we'll have a Q&A section near the end. So check it out. And Aniza, yeah, you're getting lots of love on your new podcast. So
Yep.
Gerald keeps throwing that in there. So thanks. Besides that, everyone have a great session. You know I'm here. Ask questions if you need me. I'm going to turn the time over to, so we've got Mike Snyder from Revacomm, Patrick Barrett from Catalyst Campus, Colorado Springs, and Aniza Brown from Catalyst Campus, Ogden, Utah. Take it away, y'all.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. I'm going to pull the slides up. So I didn't want to cut you off while you were finishing up. No, I appreciate everybody joining. Thank you. Thank you for coming on for day 2. It's kind of fun getting things started. So hopefully we'll be able to keep the energy up and keep things moving forward positively. Yesterday was fantastic. So today's looking to be another good day. So our topic today we want to talk about really is user engagement and user experience and the important role that plays in successfully implementing, adopting, and achieving mission outcomes with DevSecOps for whether it's your federal civilian constituents or DoD mission partners. So over to Aniza.
Okay, a little bit about me. So my background is in electrical engineering with an emphasis in computer science. My career actually started at Raytheon in Tucson. I did embedded software there, and then I became this random subject matter expert for graphical user interfaces because I didn't like how we were deploying software and then not being able to use it, and it wasn't really intuitive. So I just decided to write a white paper and do what I wanted. And then eventually I ended up going over to Hill Air Force Base. Majority of my brief will actually be on Hill Air Force Base, about Hill Air Force Base and my experience there with UX, which I was pretty excited about. And then how I try to change the way we did business within the DoD. And then things that I am pretty dang proud of that I've currently been doing is I am the co-founder and co-host of Mother Hackers with Michaela Flattoe from Defense Unicorns. I know, I'm like, yeah. So I just actually launched my the Rosie project, which will actually lower the barrier for military spouses, enable them to start a clearance with Hill Air Force Base, get their start an internship, get them their IT certs, and after 6 months, they'll have a career at either Hill Air Force Base. And then once their spouse PCSs, they have the opportunity to PCS with a very lucrative position. And on top of that, lowering the barrier of entry by providing daycare, just removing, like, that's one of the biggest issues in Utah right now is daycare. So removing those barriers. And then the innovation that we're actually providing to Ogden and the collaboration, not only with small businesses, Silicon Slopes, I'm also the head of Silicon Slopes Aerospace and Defense in Ogden, trying to drive the narrative of how aerospace and defense impacts Northern Utah and how we can utilize that to drive opportunity to modernize faster than our adversaries within the DoD. So that's a little bit about me.
All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Patrick Barrett. I'm the CEO of Catalyst Campus for Technology and Innovation. I've been here for in this position for about 2 years now. My journey getting here started off, got my undergraduate degree from the University of Washington, Bachelor of Science in Industrial Engineering, where I worked in the Human Interface Technology Lab at the University of Washington and was a teaching assistant for Human Factors Engineering and Design, and also Human Computer Interface Design. So lots of experience a long time ago in that from an academia side. Went on to get my Master of Science in Management with a concentration in IT. After that, got my MBA. From experience of about 25 years, a little over 25 years of experience in aerospace and defense. Started off my career doing engineering, doing human computer interface design for an Air Force program. From there, went on to be a program manager, subcontract program manager, spent a lot of time in operations, spent about 10 years of my career between Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station, Peterson Air Force Base, Schriever Air Force Base, Buckley, working on the OPIR mission. Got to see firsthand a lot of the pain points that the operators see on a day-to-day basis and the archaic systems that we put in their hands, and got to do something positive to influence that. And I'll get into that in a little bit. From a Catalyst Campus perspective, Catalyst Campus is a collaborative innovation ecosystem. We create, we grow, and we sustain collaborative innovation ecosystems that bring together industry, government, and academia for the primary purpose of supporting national security, but then also supporting the economic development of communities. We were started in 2015, so we've been around for about 8 years now. And the big focus, the big primary focus is on helping small businesses get access to the government, which is a huge barrier to entry for small businesses today. So a lot of the wraparound services that we provide are focused on that. One thing I wanted to point out, General Van Herk, 4-star from Northcom, has a lab here at our campus called Pathfinder. And he came down before he testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee. And he testified that the innovation taking place at the Catalyst Campus is a best practice for the DoD. So that was a huge praise from the 4-star. When he was given a demonstration here at Catalyst Campus, I won't highlight specific names, but there was a small business as part of our ecosystem that had delivered a capability, a user interface capability, within 24 hours of being put on contract. And that's literally unheard of in the DoD, to put a company on contract, have them deliver a minimal viable product in 24 hours. But that's what they've been able to enable through the N2X Pathfinder program. So this is a view of our campus, 12 acres, 8 buildings, about 200,000 square feet. And we're continuing to grow across the country. We've got a Capital Region location, then obviously Aniza representing from Ogden, Utah. And I'll turn it over to Mike.
For sure. Thanks, Patrick. There you go. So I'm Mike Snyder. I'm the DoD Portfolio Director here at Revacomm. Compared to many of the other speakers here, I'm probably the least technical person that's ever presented a DevOps topic. So I come from an Army background. I was Intel NCO when I finally left service in 2011. The 35 November, I did SIGINT, MASINT. So a lot of OPIR stuff and everything Patrick was talking about. We were end users, consumers, and we're trying to get that stuff to work to help the mission. From education side, right? I have a BS, really. It's a BA in history for undergrad, and then I went and got a master's in science and peace operations policy, and then an MBA. So I've really been tracking into the hardcore engineering side, so that's fun. Again, I've been most of my career though. After my time in the military, I've been delivering and working within a lot of the private sector consulting companies. So I've worked with Booz Allen, worked with Accenture, and I transitioned over to the world of the smalls. And it's been fantastic as that has evolved to move from doing more like strategic level or just staff augmentation type role to more and more looking at the way the systems that the programs and the organizations operate and use to support day-to-day missions, how those have evolved and how they've been transforming. So across companies, across sectors, across ecosystems, worked very, very extensively within the DoD and the Intel community, but I've also worked within commercial and nonprofits. So I've seen the way industry has done their modernization and transformation, how industry has also struggled as well. And one of the fun things that I've learned is that the stuff that we're working through across the DoD and the stuff that we're working through within the IC and the federal government, and in many cases is actually surpassed and is leading the way for several big industry companies to follow suit. And I think that's tremendous and is often overlooked and isn't given enough credit. But today we want to talk about what we're talking about is really the transformation of how DoD organizations have leveraged and integrated user experience, user-centered design to truly achieve and align their efforts and have huge transformational outcomes for the mission and delivery of capabilities. And this has played a massive part in a lot of the successes and big names that we've come to know, right? We've heard of Platform One, we've heard of Tron, we've heard of Kessel Run, we've heard of the Army Software Factory. All these things, these units, these organizations are leading the way. So we want to start highlighting some of these key points. So happy to talk more. Happy to talk a little bit later about other topics. Throw anything you want in Q&A if you want. We'll address it towards the end. We're going to talk through this. If something really catches our attention, we'll talk mid-slide, but we'll just go ahead and get started. Over to you, Aniza.
Thank you. So started with the DoD in around 2015 and was working with F-16, really saw there was a very different way of doing business. And I wanted to change a lot of how we did business to make sense for the warfighter. So let me go through that. My view of software being produced in the Air Force was like, we needed to do better. We needed to integrate the pilots into the requirements a little bit closer. And then one of our biggest issues would we would produce a product and then throw it over to the pilot after a year or two, and then find out we were producing something that was not up to their standards or didn't meet the need. So then at that point, we're late to deliver a product, like we're late to need. So I believe a lot of the reason why that was an issue is because UX is subjective. And that creates an impact, good or bad, for the product. The team was missing equity in like the product because once a developer would end, they would throw it over the wall and it'd go over to test, and they would be able to, and it would be their baby at that point. And so a lot ended up changing eventually. Eventually, like we would go to a PMR, like a program management review, and we identified like we can't continue to produce software every year or 2 years and then go and have a PMR with our customer, a program management review, and then talk about the issues that they were running into, and not be iterative, not integrate the user early. So next slide.
It's to that point, it's too often overlooked. What I found, and correct me if I'm wrong or if you disagree, but in the way that these systems are procured and then the way that they're developed and delivered, people forget, or it's easy to just brush aside that it's a I'm going to use this term, socio-technical architecture, right? There's the people, there's the organizations, there's the work, there's the human side of it, and there's the technical side that all has to mesh together.
Yeah.
But oftentimes with acquisitions, you can just focus on the technical. And that causes huge problems.
I won't even get on acquisition. Little DM, limited feedback. Oh God, I know. Freaking PMRs. Okay, next slide. So eventually I'm in F16. I'm thinking there has to be a better way. Like I just left Raytheon. There was an iterative process. So I'm like trying to make change at a lower level within the software engineering group. And then eventually the general asked me to develop an application, and things died. Like to ask for something the Air Force didn't do, to ask for something that was not supported. There was no software tools for it. It was so difficult. It took a year to get tools to deploy this app and to develop this app. And it bugged me that it could take that long, even with a general requesting this product. So eventually I ended up getting the software I needed, deploying a tool. We couldn't do it on base because of the infrastructure. So I took us off base. We went to a location right outside of base. That was our first software team off base in 2016-ish timeframe. And then immediately you saw this like huge push for everybody wanting to go off base. And that started like this grassroots initiative to change the way we did business. And then on top of it, after fighting through this process to get tools to do something pretty innovative, it brought a lot of the projects that weren't enabled to be innovative to the forefront. The people who were trying to do things better for the warfighter were being almost dismissed. And so immediately after we deployed the software, I went back for the process. I did not agree with it. And that's my little monkey of like, why? Because I asked why for everything. I wanted to know why we weren't utilizing approved software that the Air Force had approved, why we weren't on the cloud, why we weren't doing things collaboratively. You know, at Hill Air Force Base, you have 2,000 engineers, and you think 2,000 engineers, 7,000 across Tinker, Robinson Hill. How do you integrate so that when a product like say A10 or F16 slows down, you can utilize those that manpower at Robbins for C-130. So there was a lot of opportunity there, and I had a lot of fun. I ended up being the chief of corporate transformation for the general, trying to drive change and innovation. And a long time, I thought I was doing it by myself. So next was the change, and it was a beast, to say it nicely. Next slide. Okay, so boom, 2018 happens. We're off base. We've integrated the customer, the pilot. That was one of my favorite things about going from Raytheon to the Air Force was my pilot was my customer. It was a very direct connection to that mission. And now the pilots were sitting with us. We were utilizing cloud infrastructure. We were actually working back and forth together to develop tools and processes and everything we could outside the base to make sure that we were integrating the user experience. Like, I think one of the best examples was when I was talking to an F-35 pilot about, auto ejecting out of a jet, like say auto GCAS. When you have GLOS, so G-loss of consciousness, as opposed to auto GCAS coming in and like stabilizing the jet. Initially, when we were originally talking to the pilot, we're like, oh, well, yeah, what if we just auto ejected you? Just trying to figure out a way of like, how do we fix this? And he looked at us and he's like, I'd rather die than be auto ejected. And I'm like, oh, okay. And explaining that to us.
Just so we're clear too, the GCAS is that ground collision avoidance system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So that came after, but I'm like, that actually came after on F-16, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're like throwing out these like insane ideas. And if you literally enabled us to run with it without the pilot's perspective and iterative communication and feedback, this is where we would go. And it was not pretty. And it was like, how have we done it so long that we hadn't been like integrating that feedback? We hadn't been developing requirements and going back to check that we were on the right path. So it really changed the dynamic once we were sitting with our customer. And then the other thing, I mean, that I kind of pushed on was when I was developing the app, there was no UX designers. There was no user interface designers, and it wasn't our thing. And then, next slide. I ended up having the opportunity to go to Kessel Run and seeing how they were working at the time. I mean, the brainchild of, I think it was DIUX and Pivotal, they had developed their teams differently. So they had their continuous engagement with the customer. They had continuous feedback loops through surveys. They had UX designers, they had developers, and everybody sit together. Like, and that was the big thing. I think that kind of drove that collaboration and innovation. And then on top of it, they started introducing small businesses, a large contractor. It didn't matter. If you were on a team, you were on a team. And that one team approach was everything going forward. The way I wanted to do business completely changed. And you could see the thing we hadn't tangibly gotten to was working so well.
Yep.
So, and no uniforms either. Everybody was on the same playing level, especially with, said the bureaucracy of like command levels. So it was beautiful. It was just one big team trying to get towards the same solution. And it didn't matter where you came from. It didn't matter who you were. And it just changed that dynamic for us. And we wanted to be that. We wanted to do that. We'd never seen anything like that. And then once Kessel Run and Kobayashi Maru and a couple of others had come up and they were driving that collaboration as one team approach, all of a sudden you see nobody wanting to go back. And that's the next slide.
I think another point there too, right, is I know that they proactively from the get-go sent software teams, sent designers forward to the AOCs. They were working on site with the AOC members in LUD. They were working with the team members elsewhere. And it wasn't just for the application product teams, but I remember being up there and helping to onboard a product team from the DCGS spell down in Georgia to their platform, and the platform engineering teams and the security engineering teams worked as product owners for their services as well. And they applied the same approaches to the shared services from the platform, from the security, from the pipelines. So.
Well, I mean, I just want to emphasize on another thing. Like, I remember sitting there with F-35 and them being like, well, we don't have any pilots there, like in Arizona. And I'm just like, we have like a whole F-35 command at Hill Air Force Base. And it made us want to integrate to the customer. We wanted to be as close as we could to somebody saying that's a stupid idea, because I'd rather somebody tell me fail fast and move on than like build out this whole product. And so as we saw, like there was no going back. Once we did this, once there was exactly, Michaela, like, removing the silos, removing the bureaucracy, and being able to communicate directly with somebody just changed everything. And I think relating it back to my current position, the ability to build that collision space, that ecosystem, was so important. And it led to a ton of software factories. I mean, and I feel like everybody always thinks like, oh yeah, one software factory was cool and everybody went along with it. It was a massive grassroots effort in the DoD. It was the best of the best coming together and saying, we're doing it wrong, and this is how we're going to fix it. And it was a beautiful opportunity to change how we provided services to the warfighter. And user experience was a game changer for the DoD once they acknowledged it and started integrating it. And the culture of moving from waterfall to agile, and it was an interesting approach to getting to a more user-centric environment where we're getting the feedback, where we're integrating the customer, and we were driving innovation from the ground up. So I think that is the end of my slides. you are up. Patrick.
Patrick.
All right, thanks, Aniza. Great overview of that. And it's been great here at Catalyst Campus to be part of some of the software factory environments, having them here on campus and seeing the successes firsthand. I want to walk everybody through a journey, and I promise that I don't have I'm not making any money off of the sale of these books, but I want to promote a book for everybody. So I mentioned in my introduction that I had the opportunity during my undergraduate in the late 90s and the mid 90s to work under Dr. Thomas Furness at the University of Washington's Human Interface Technology Lab, or HIT Lab. So Dr. Thomas Furness has spent over 50 years working in user interface design. He originally had a 23-year career in the Air Force back in the 70s and 80s, in all the way through, I think, 89, where he actually invented virtual reality. So he was the grandfather of virtual reality. He put together the Super Cockpit program in the original head-up displays that you see in the F-16 and some of the other fighter jets, came out of the lab that he was working at out at Wright Pat. And through his career, he ended up starting 27 companies, has 19 patents, and has turned a lot of the technology work that he's done into solving major challenges across the globe, like access to water, healthcare, education, doing remote surgeries, trying to do into third world countries, things like that, using virtual reality technology. And I had the opportunity during my undergrad to work in that lab, and they always needed volunteers to step in and try some of these really crazy virtual reality applications. Luckily, I've got a good stomach, so not everybody was so fortunate to go through some of the different tests that they were running us through. But it was an absolutely amazing experience, and what it did is it changed my perspective on the way I see everything in the world, literally everything in the world every day. It changed my perspective. And as part of my industrial engineering undergrad, we had to read several different books. I also was a teaching assistant for human factors engineering and human-centered design. And one of the books that really stood out, and I know Defense Unicorns put on just did a book club, I think, within their company on it, but The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman. Highly recommend that everybody read it. It's a very easy book to read. If you have not already read it, go out and buy it or borrow it and give it a quick read. But it will change your perspective. I mean, literally from where handles are on doors to, you can see the way that teapot's designed to just pretty much everything that you interface with on a day-to-day basis. And it gets your mind going about how do I as a influencer within whatever position that you're in today, how do I influence the design in such a way that it's going to be usable and it's going to be optimal and it's going to have safety and reliability and everything else built into it. One other quick story I wanted to share was my Windows 95 story. So I was flying on an airplane from Seattle to San Jose, and I can probably tell you the year was like 1994. And up until that point, I'd only used an Apple computer. The guy sitting next to me started making conversation. He said, "Hey, I work for this company called Microsoft, and we're coming up with this new operating system. It's called Windows 95, and I'm really excited about it." So he said, "Do you want to see it?" So, he shows me, and honestly, I wasn't very blown away because, he's showing me the little start button. I'm like, well, that looks kind of like the Apple, but you just put it in the wrong corner. And he's walking through how the user interface worked. And that day, it just kind of clicked like, hey, it kind of just looks like an Apple to me. Fast forward to my first job out of college, and I had a 386 computer running Windows 3.1. And then all of a sudden it clicked and I said, now I understand why Windows 95 was so cool. So anyway, highlight of this chart is highly recommend everybody go out, read The Design of Everyday Things. It will change your perspective on everything. It'll make you a better, it doesn't matter what position you have. If you're writing software if you're always going to start looking at it from the perspective of the user. And that's the important takeaway here. Next chart. So I mentioned during my career, I've had lots of opportunities to work in different operational type of environments. So had the opportunity to work on the integrated tactical warning attack assessment, combatant commanders integrated command and control system, not to overuse acronyms, for the air mission evolution and air defense command and control system deployment. So I was working just post 9/11. We had working on a contract where we were again updating the system that provides notification to the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Canada if North America is under attack with a near 100% operational availability. So highly influential system for our country, a no-fail system, and obviously something very important. And we were working to get the originally we're working on the space part of the mission with there's space, there was missile warning and air defense. And there was a quick change in priority after 9/11 occurred. And it was all hands on deck to try to change and implement and field the new air defense mission system, because prior to 9/11, as you know, we were looking at the borders of North America for the threat and not necessarily the threat coming from within. So there was a team of over 100 developers that were working on the system and had been working on it for at least 18 months. And I was sent up to Cheyenne Mountain to start a group called Mission Assurance Center, basically proactive system administration, trying to get the system fielded and operational. And one of the tasks that I had was making sure that we hired everybody, trained them, wrote all the operational procedures, how to use the system, how to interact with the system, and get that up and running, which we did. Long story short, but during that process, I spent quite a bit of time with a Canadian major, along with a captain from United States Air Force, and they were pilots, and obviously had spent a lot of their career as pilots, and here they are working, under within Cheyenne Mountain in the Air Operations Center there and the command center, and they were looking at the system and some early iterations of it, and they said, hey, this looks identical to the system we have today. Obviously all of the algorithms have been updated and were much more robust than the prior system, but the system actually looked and felt very similar. And we were, if anybody dates back to these early days, this was a DICOE segmented implementation. So these were DICOE segments that were being deployed, and there was a way to overlay new maps. So we were 2 weeks away from the ribbon cutting ceremony in the Air Operations Center with the brand new system, and we created a offline system and started taking different maps and bringing them in that included air bases, different air sensors, a lot of details that were not in the previous system. We ended up demoing that capability at the ribbon cutting ceremony in front of all the generals and everybody as they were passing out coins and eating cake. The only comment that came up was, wow, I love the improved user interface on this new system. Little did they know that the only system at the time that had the improved user interface was the one that we demoed in the Air Operations Center. Obviously very quickly got the updated maps across every other system in the mountain, and there's a huge improvement to usability. The other thing that we did that I think is a best practice that I would love to see other companies and other developers move forward with is we put developers in the command center sitting side by side with the users as we were deploying early versions of the system. And what that enabled was a couple things. Number one, obviously very quick understanding of bug fixes and things like that, and understanding of how the user uses the system. But then we were able to take and incorporate a lot of the user interface design updates, not necessarily real time, but as close to real time as possible, obviously using a solid change control process and associated with it. So I firmly believe that that's a best practice. And then one other experience that I had, had the opportunity to, Mr. Madden, unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. He was an SCS from US Stratcom, was doing a study across the world of best practices for command center designs. And he had a tour really around the world. Australia, they went down to NASA, Houston, came out to Colorado Springs, and I spent 2 days with him and his entourage and team. And we went through every single command center in Cheyenne Mountain, every command center at Peterson, and every command center at Schriever. And during that time, we had the ability to really highlight best practices. And it really came down to creating an environment that presents actionable information to decision makers. One of the things I always like to highlight, Miller's magic number was published 7 ± 2 bits of information that can be incorporated into your short-term memory. A lot of times we don't allow for the right amount of data for cognitive decision making for decision makers. We present too much information, and I think that it's becoming more and more of a problem now. As we have more data, how do you figure out what data do you actually want to present to the user? What's actionable? If you're taking an action, in this case, to make a decision to protect North America, you need to have that data in a very timely manner. It's got to be 100% accurate to make the decision. Are you going to, shoot down a commercial airliner or something like that? So you want to make sure that everything that's being presented to the decision maker is actionable, and it's presented in a timely manner that they can make that decision. So great takeaway. At the end of this tour, where Mr. Madden went all the way around the world, had a chance to follow up with him in his office out at Stratcom about 6 months later. And I said, out of all the command centers around the world, what was the best design? And he cited the command center up in Cheyenne Mountain as being the best design. And just a couple of takeaways of why he felt it was the best design. For those of you who spent time in the Northcom command center in Building 2 at Peterson, or other command centers like the GOC out at Stratcom, they're very large, chaotic type of environments. The way that the command center up in Cheyenne Mountain was built, it was specifically designed in such a way that, and it was really a space limitation that didn't allow everybody to be in the same room, but the decision makers sat in the main room, and then all of the supporting elements sat in other rooms, and only the information that needed to be pushed forward to the decision makers was pushed forward. And you can see this is the command center. We brought this online in 2015, along with the missile warning mission that was running at the time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Snyder, but I do want to everybody to take away the design of everyday things, present actionable information, don't create chaotic environments for decision makers, and make sure that anytime you're designing a user interface, that you obviously incorporate user feedback. So with that, over to you, Mike.
All right. I want to shift a little bit of gears here and talk about some efforts that have been going on. We showed all those successes and showed the map earlier that identified the different known software factory efforts across the DoD. After last year's DevOps Enterprise Summit presentation, when I was able to be joined by Eeyore, who is one of the technical leads out at Ski Camp, we were talking about transforming the cloud to jet release engineering pipeline and architectures. We were brought in and we helped to do and facilitate a study that was published this year to really figure out why some software factories are thriving and successful within the DoD versus others are failing and are beginning to die off. And this effort was led by leaders across the DoD, to include Colonel Beachkovsky, who was formerly the commander at Kessel Run, Lieutenant Colonel Max Reel, who presented on the findings and the presentations there, Rick Jack and others from Nywik PAC, and other contributors, to include Gene Kim and Admiral John Richardson, the former Navy CNO. So this research happened. We looked at it across 30 plus organizations from the first set. And one of the key contributors that we found to success that is covered in the Y-axis is the proximity and access to the users. Any software development effort and technology teams that are out there The ones that were most successful, able to actually deliver capabilities and were best positioned to maintain, sustain, and continue to improve these efforts were the ones that were able to get direct access to the customers, either bring them into their ecosystem, into their environments to be part of the delivery team and development teams, or take their development teams and have unfettered free access to the users in the mission areas. Right? That was key. That is crucial. And what that allows organizations to do, and the examples of this have shown huge impact, right? Again, we already mentioned Kessel Run, Tron from the PACAF and 15th Air Wing out at Hickam Air Force Base. It's a direct software. There was a software factory that was led by the 15th Air Wing and Aloha Spark and directly brought in the user community. But I see a lot of these conversations in the chat talking about the acquisitions process. And one of the problems that has been for so long is when you look at the PEO structure, when you look at the way acquisitions are handled, when you look at a lot of the solutions that has been the traditional ways, is the procurement of these systems has been done with a pre-designed solution that comes from the PEO. It drops and forgets that the users actually have to get hands-on, and the solutions need to be built to their specs, to what they need, to their mission needs, and to their inputs, versus a pre-written set of technical requirements. And you can see, and I'll go to the next slide here, but I just want to summarize, right? Unfettered and direct integration of user needs was identified as a key determinant of success and for these organizations. These are some of the findings that we were able to determine as we did this research this past year, right? Again, the x-axis, talking about lines of authority, we talk about how many people we have to get approval from in order to take any action. If you want to commit a line of code, if you want to procure something, if you want to shift the design structure, if you want to do your IT operations and get deployment of applications into different environments, boom. But proximity to mission outcomes, right? We want to be embedded with our users. So what the heck does that mean? You know, bringing this in as the UX and user-centered design presentation that we're focusing on. It's really making sure that outcome, the experience that the users have with the solutions that we are developing from the get-go and in continuous feedback loops, is crucial for the solutions to be successful. And this goes to anything that we're talking about here, whether it's a business enterprise system, whether it's a maintenance and logistics data system, right? How do maintainers input their end-of-day maintenance work? How are they tracking that? How do they see the consumption of parts? What does the flight scheduling app look like? All of these sorts of things that we're talking about traditionally were procured without the users as being key contributors to the requirements. And we're talking about shifting that so it's a continuous feedback loop. These slides will be shared out a little bit later. I put the link to Max Reel's plenary talk from this year's DevOps Enterprise Summit in this. I highly recommend that everybody check this out, because one of the biggest things that was identified here for leaders to take away from this is, if your organization isn't positioned and your development teams aren't enabled and aren't supported to actually get lines of communication directly with potential end users. As Aniza mentioned, there were groups that were saying, I don't have any F-35 pilots to talk to, even though they were right there on base. As leaders, you need to find ways to free that up, enable that, and make it so that they can get that communication. Even just starting small and just user interview sessions, just discussions, feedback, sounding sessions, goes a long way. You don't necessarily have to have them as part of the development teams from the get-go, but moving in that path really makes a huge impact to make sure that the solutions being developed meet those user requirements and evolve to continue to improve on what is provided to them currently. There was a question here that Rob asked, can we describe the difference between user-centric design and user-driven design? And I just want to address that before we move on. I will probably get chewed up by some of the UCD and design people in here, and feel free to throw corrections in the chat. But the way that I see the two is user-centered design still has a bit of detachment. There's still the teams that are still doing the application development stuff. They do sort of from a distance or periodically interviews, design sessions, sounding sessions with the users, and that comes and provides feedback into what is being developed. User-driven design, I think, is a much more proactive and integrated approach, where the users are sitting there side by side with the development teams to really show, hey, when I'm on mission, this is what I'm expecting to do. I need it to do this. So it bridges that gap a little bit.
I'd
That's
agree.
my take.
I would agree with that take. I mean, UCD, I think is like user-centered design is more on understanding what that need is, not being just driven, but actually embedding to understand what that need is, and then deploying potential software, hardware solutions. And the other one is much more engaged and integrated. So exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Can I actually jump in? Can I jump into this topic?
Yeah, Rob Snyder wants me to jump off a bridge, so I think that's a big difference there.
Yeah, no, I since I have access to video and I did UX for years, I love where Mike and Aniza are going right there. Is just to share a quick example of when I was doing UX design on the web development side for the Navy years ago. It was actually user-centered side would actually get in, hey, can I come sit at your desk and watch you use this for a whole day? And I want to watch you struggle. I want to watch your face react. I want to see how much time it takes you to use something. I want to hear all the things. And so you're actually sitting there with people way before you start giving them a solution. You're actually feeling what they go through every day versus that. And that's that user-centered side, just as an example. But that's the bonus of being a host. I can jump in when I want.
I love it, man. And you are one of those designers that I know that is what really excites you, and that you have a long bit of experience with that. So appreciate the inputs. Want to go a little bit. I want to just showcase one specific example where the success has really played out into huge outcomes for the Air Force. And that is with Tron, which was a software factory that was stood up out at Hickam Air Force Base initially with the Aloha Spark. And it actually moved off base to what Aniza was saying earlier, to partner and co-develop with our team at Revacomm, where we actually had airmen coders that we helped to stand up, get up to speed, teach them, work with them, help them integrate user-centered design. We had our designers as part of the teams initially, and it transitioned to the Air Force driving the design and the experience development. So we transitioned to that. And what was accomplished there in an initial thing was that it brought a totally new mentality and new approach to delivering small scale technical capabilities through software that proved to have massive mission impact, and to show that you don't have to have everything pre-designed, pre-developed, or pre-engineered and then just build to spec. You can actually work and help them build that agile culture, help them to work iteratively, get feedback quickly, get things into production very quickly. And one of the biggest success stories so far has been the puckboard application, which is pat the Tron team and the puckboard team on the back, and the Revacomm team that supported them at the time. That was the first IL5 production application that was deployed onto Party Bus. That is operating now, and there's over 20,000 users that are actively leveraging puckboard as a mission scheduler and crew readiness application to support airlift missions, and was actually used and supported the Afghan evacuations last summer. So this was a key thing in that they didn't have to go too heavyweight. It was very lightweight, but what it did was leveraging the whiteboards, leveraging sticky notes, leveraging notepads and stuff. You can just, as long as it's the product and the application, the workflows was built to focus on the mission and on the outcomes. And then the software behind it was completely centered on that. It was geared on what was needed to support the mission needs. That was crucial. And it is still a collaborative thing. And the beautiful thing about puckboard as well, and Tron as an organization, Tron started on base. They needed a place to go to be able to have the accesses and somewhat of the freedom, and also to see how industry was developing software. So they moved into our Revacomm offices. But the most successful part of that I believe is that Tron is completely back on Hickam now. They've taken that capability. They got a facility on base. They are back on base on GFE using government networks, and they are building and leveraging Platform One and other tools and other solutions to actually deploy and continue building more software. So huge shout out to Tron, the way that they keep operating it. It has gone. The intention and the success model of that was you build that user-centered design and then you transition and you get it back on base. So they're even closer to the users. So let me go to the next one. Again, all these practices, and there is a huge amount, tons of work and study and training and certifications and everything you can pursue out there to get to get spun up on user-centered design. But I just want to focus also, a key thing about this is it's not just for your software applications that are going and deployed for pure end users, right? It's also about the developer experience. So hammering down on this, right? DevSecOps organizations, right? That are building platform infrastructure to enable the software development teams. The same UX and UCD concepts apply to the services that you are providing as well. And that's crucial. You don't want to take approach. I saw this out there. It was awesome. Platform as a punishment. The last thing any of us want to do when we're trying to scale DevSecOps adoption is to create a platform where the experience of deploying software onto that platform is a punitive experience for people. Matt said we got 2 minutes left, so let's go quick. Right, but you have to take a balance. How do you balance between the individual dev team's needs, standardization of services, self-service, all that sort of stuff? Working through with the users helps to guide the way that your organization can posture and can address those needs effectively. So, yeah, problems it solves. I think we've all seen this throughout the years. I myself have seen it. Right, when you see the terrible enterprise and embedded software that's built to spec. All of us, throwing expletives out. How many workarounds are in place where we don't use the technology, where I'll use a whiteboard, I'll use my green notebook because the green notebook will never fail me, right? Wasted hours, huge amount of risk, or we don't use it at all, right? Acquisitions is typically seen as that point of contention, right? Disconnected from the end users. But as we were saying in the chat, it's possible. Change has been proven that it is possible. And we can't lose sight as a group that all of these things are socio-technical architectures, right? There are people that are key and the users are key and as much of a component as the actual code that is being deployed. So there you go. Couple of key takeaways. How do you bring this into practice, right? One, so if you're a leader, support the ways of getting your people, your development teams embedded or in house with the users. Get them together. Find a way of facilitating that. Have them go co-locate for a little bit. Do TDYs, do something, get them in there. Apply problem-solving empirical approach. Don't just think that it is I write it now. Everything has to be hypothesis driven. You have to think, what is the need? What will get us to support that need, and test and continue to test and continue to test, right? Again, boom, move the organization closer to the users and their needs, however step possible, even small steps. It does not need to be a full embedded team to start, but if you just get some direct lines of communication, that makes a big impact. Q&A, we strategically left this so we would not have Q&A to respond to. I'm joking. We're happy to jump and gather or anything else, or Matt, people can also take it up in chat.
We'll have an opportunity. You can use the lobby to chat with these folks. They'll have folks in gather tomorrow for the industry day. Another time to get with them. You can find all 3 of them. They're all pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can connect with them too. But I am going to kind of be the time police just because we've got other sessions and things. So anything last from you 3?
Yeah, just thank you for the opportunity to be part of it.
No, I agree. This was exciting. Thanks. It was just fun to even talk about this stuff. So
yeah, and if anybody has any feedback, would love to hear feedback. We're always trying to get better at presenting and content and everything. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you all 3. Really appreciate all the chats and comments of this conversation. So yeah, right now we're going to throw you on a break here in a second. We got another session coming up. It's going to be awesome, as they all have been. We'll leave them on here for a second if you guys want to ask them anything in chat. But the next session is going to be, what is Big Bang? And yes, it's left like that so you can figure out what it is, or maybe you show up so you can learn what it is. So I got some great speakers, Enrique Ode, Austin Bryan, and Zachary Burke, who are working backstage right now, getting ready to bring you some great content and some great information. Thanks again, Mike and Aniza, for being on here.